Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. I'm a regular subscriber and listener to Hobby News Daily, and about a month ago, there were a couple episodes back-to-back that made me think when I was doing monthly magazines, you'd put out something, and then if somebody had a question about it, or a comment, it took a while for that to work through the system. So I wondered about Hobby News Daily and the feedback loop there. And while I was doing that, because I was thinking about contacting Danny, I'd had conversation with Danny Black before it was started. And Adam, I've been on frequently with Adam on Hobby News Daily, and he has become a prolific voice in the hobby, knocking out these Hobby News Dailies every day. So hats off to that. While I was contemplating that and wanting to respond in a nice way, giving some feedback, all of a sudden, Hobby News Daily went dark. It wasn't daily. 2 or 3 weeks where they weren't publishing. I thought, gosh, I hope it's not gone because I subscribe and I depend on it. It's my version of Hobby Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, but I think Adam is combing Twitter and other things to grab themes and topics that he can talk about because he's got to fill up each day. And he does it to the tune of 10 or 12 minutes a day. At any rate, but he's back now. While I was contemplating this and preparing an episode, lamenting the loss of the daily hobby news that I was getting, imperfect as it is, they're back. Okay, so Adam is back, which you can see. You have your choice to subscribe to whatever you want to subscribe to, but most people that subscribe to my podcast I really care about the hobby and are looking for other podcasts that are short, or if they're long, they need to be really entertaining, and many of them are. So I subscribe to some long ones too, but Hobby News Daily was one of the shorter ones that I subscribed to. So the themes that came up that I wanted to respond to were everybody has a little bit of a pro-management or non-management bias or perspective. There's officers in the Army and there's non-commissioned officers like sergeants. And the sergeants are worthy of great respect and are very wise in many cases. Officers aren't necessarily better than enlisted people, but they're trained in a different way. They see problems in a different way. So having been a boss, the owner of a company in the industry, I see it with an owner perspective, and yet I always wanted to get good feedback from people that I worked with and worked for me, and I wanted them to hit me with the truth and tell me what I want to hear. The people that got ahead in our company were people that told the truth, even if it was something I didn't agree. They had a chance to defend their position, and if I still disagreed with their position, I had awesome employees that, okay, I said my piece, and you make the call, and we'll execute as best we can. I wasn't right every time, but I was right a lot of the time. So Adam is drawing attention to controversies or potential conspiracies that are just out there being discussed. So I don't think he's inventing them. He may be adding fuel to the fire for some of these controversies. And frankly, why not? If you're doing a daily media presentation, controversy, bad news, conspiracies, all those things typically are expected to draw listeners. I don't think they do always, but sometimes they do. And as I said, it's a really tough job to come out with something every day. Everything you do when you're doing a print publication is about the volume. How many, because you got to pay the printer to print up, and then you've got to mail it out or get it out there in somewhat. And there's certain costs associated with printing, but they're the similar kind of costs that you have if you're doing a podcast, which Hobby News Daily was. There's employee costs, which I had a bunch of those. I'm not sure what the arrangement is there. Not a lot of capital costs. You don't necessarily have to have an office. The work can be remote. Production cost is not great. You have a microphone and not a big deal. Customer acquisition cost. I really never thought about that as much because when I started my publications, I was already pretty well known and had a good base to start from. And from there, I was hoping for virality, that I would get viral referrals. And for the most part, we did. We didn't buy mailing lists. We just expected people to pay it forward and pass it on. And I think that's Hobby News Daily's model, and many of them, to buy followers or likes. I don't know that it really works in the long run. You've got to deliver. And if you deliver, people tell their friends. Anyway, that's my theory. And then as you grow, you can get more sponsor revenue. I don't think Hobby News Daily has a lot of sponsor revenue. Like I said, I thought maybe they stopped publishing because of some of those things. It's Hobby News Daily. I give Adam and Danny high marks that even though they're touting some conspiracies occasionally and controversies, it's always about the hobby. Daily obviously did that, and that's remarkable and awesome. The news part, I am old school. I think news is facts, and it no longer is facts. News is opinions, and the opinions of the facts or the opinions of the potential motives of the people involved in the story. You've got to be careful because you don't know the motives. Rarely on my podcast, sometimes I'll have guests, interviews, or give a reference to somebody that told me something. But in a daily thing like that, I don't think Adam has time to get a lot of sources or interviewing. It's so quick hitting that he's giving his opinion and his perspective. And it's provocative. It makes people think, I don't know if I agree with that. But many of these things are just mysteries. We don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes at the grading companies, at the card companies. But any efforts to say that a company in the industry is mailing it in or it's just a pure money grab, that is an opinion that is questioning the purity of the motives of the people. If they don't care about the long-term interest of the hobby or the secondary market, they don't care about that. I can assure you, in every conversation I've ever had, none of that comes up. If a team in any of the sports is tanking, a team can tank because the management, the general manager, the coach, the owner, whatever says, we want to get a higher draft pick. I think that's terrible, but it has happened, and that's why draft lotteries were instituted. But an organization can say, we're not going to play our best players coming down the stretch because there's no real incentive to do that. We want to help develop our younger talent. There's different ways of shaping that. Okay. But once a player gets in the game, that player has to do his or her best. You can't say, my team doesn't want to win, I'm going to miss shots. No, you'll be booted out of the league, and it's doing less than your best. So my point is, the graders, the card company employees, they are giving it their best. Anything else gets them kicked out of the industry, whether they're perceived as being a lame duck. And I really not sure Panini is a lame duck. They're a lame duck in the sense of business as usual, basketball and football. But I am hopefully optimistic that they have some really sharp people there that will figure out ways to redeploy the talent they have. And I think they've made a lot of money over the last years. They really built those categories. And so hopefully they're going to reinvest in some new IP or other things. I've mentioned that. But Hobby News Daily, I'm wondering if it's a labor of love. There's a difference between losing money and not making money. I didn't make money. I probably lost a little bit of money my first couple of years doing the magazines. And so I wasn't making money, probably losing a little bit of money, but essentially I was working for free. And that didn't sound so bad for a couple of years. If it had been 10 years, that's another story. But I had faith that if I stayed the course, this thing was going to grow. And I'm hopeful that Hobby News Daily can stay the course and broaden their circulation. I do have some recommendations for Adam and Danny. I really would love to see it be shorter. As you know from my podcast, I really want to be efficient. I don't want to spend a lot of time on sponsors. I don't want to spend a lot of time on music. I want to get to the heart of the matter and then not extend it. And it's very difficult to keep it under 15 minutes, but 98% of them are under 15 minutes, and they're between 10 and 15 minutes. But if Hobby News Daily was 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, something like that, I think that would be good. Another theme that caused me to respond was the shill bidding thing with the recent lawsuit between Alt and PWCC, which PWCC is a defunct acquired company. In fact, I don't know that the company was acquired. When my company was acquired, they didn't really buy the company. They bought the assets of the company. And I'm quite sure that's what Fanatics did, which means they're not buying the liabilities, which means the lawsuit that's with PWCC, especially for activities that happened before Fanatics bought the PWCC brand. We'll see how that plays out. But it alleges shill bidding that the companies knew about and did nothing to stop it. People mean different things with shill bidding. Some shill bidding situations are very sophisticated and some are very unsophisticated. If they're unsophisticated, then your wife is bidding on your item and then doesn't pay and has zero feedback. Okay, that's obvious. Probstein, PWCC, any major in the day, eBay, or any platform needs to police that. They don't, it's on them if they should have known. But when it's 6 degrees of separation I'm not criticizing this because it's the nature of doing daily thing, and it happens on the network and cable news channels as well. There's anecdotal reports, and they're not analytical or empirical. Just somebody did something bad, and we want to tell you about it. Then to generalize, to say that means that all these people are bad, or that's indicative of something that may just be an isolated thing. I'm more interested in trends that are real. I really enjoyed Krause's Trade Facts. SCD had a one-page facts that came out. That's been 30 years ago, and it went for 10 years or so. I'd love to have the daily communication of what's going on in the industry. I think there's a business opportunity there. Another theme is quality control, implying incompetence within the Topps group or the Panini group or Upper Deck or any other card company. I used to teach quality control. There's not a mistake in the set design, product development. There's not even a problem in the set execution usually, is that they print out their 99 cards numbered to 99. All that stuff is done. The problem is in the collation and the distribution and getting it packed out. I've been to several places where cards are packed out over many years. They're similar. They've got the base cards, and then they've got these kind of shoes or pockets that drop with a certain frequency that might be slightly randomized, but make sure if it's supposed to be 1 out of every 1,000 packs, it's doing it. And those things can malfunction. What they should be looking at is the quality control that if it's supposed to be every 1,000 packs, it's coming at least every 1,000 packs. But the stories I hear are criticism when it comes out way more frequently than that. In other words, you get several things in one case or several things in one box, way more than you're supposed to be, okay? That could be on purpose, and it's no harm, no foul. As long as you're getting at least what you were promised, somebody gets a bonus or a hot pack. Obviously, they don't want to give away all the goodies in one pack, but observing that process, they're going to have one person go over there and check, whether it's Fanatics or Panini, regardless of who owns the printing facility and all the collating. Frequently, there's several lines going at the same time. There's so much security there and so many ways that things could go wrong. Like I said, they're worried people aren't going to get what they said. If they get more, that doesn't mean foul play. It just means maybe the machine was not calibrated right. But if you're talking about an observer from the card company that goes over to the printing facility, if you've been there, the lines go so fast. They're printing millions and millions of cards. And the only way you can do it is like with a random sample, or you pull out some. And even that is going to be really difficult to be verifying the case hits. But like I said, I think they calibrate it so you're getting at least what you thought. Another theme I've heard is that the companies don't really care about the secondary market. If they feel whatever they put out, people will buy it, regardless of cost. That would be foolish to think that way. There are price points they study very carefully. Pricing, as I know from my business, if you're the boss, you can price it any way you want to. If you price it too high, you'll presumably sell less, but you'll make more profit per item. But generally, you want to get the product out there and meet the demand. You can either price it by cost plus, which many people do that way, and that's the way people think it is, or what Panini has done lately is you price it by what the traffic will bear. If people are willing to pay more, as evidenced by the secondary market, which, as I said, they care very much about. If the secondary market craters, then they know they have a problem, and it's an ongoing problem because it could damage that sub-brand in the perception that it's overproduced, for example. Anyway, welcome back, Hobby News Daily. I missed you when you were gone, and like I said, Adam, I'd appreciate it if you would shrink the episodes a little bit, and I am just giving you feedback that there is a different perspective on some of these issues that you present pretty stridently. Again, people don't want vanilla news, but I can't ask Adam and Hobby News Daily to do something that isn't even done on the major networks. If you want a different opinion, you've got to change the channel. The issue with Hobby News Daily is there's no other channel. You can go find other opinions, but I may be accused too much of being positive tone, but there's a lot of good news in the industry. And all the people I know in the card companies and the grading companies love the hobby. They want to have a long-term job and they want to be profitable. But when companies are wildly profitable, when we had our best years, certainly I gave bonuses, but there was plenty left for me. So it's not like the employees get all the extra money. You know, they are compensated fairly and extra, but the investors or the owners are benefiting from that. And if they try to exaggerate pricing, it can be short-term good and long-term very foolish. So anyway, thanks, Adam, and thanks, listeners. I'm welcoming back Hobby News Daily, and it'll be here tomorrow, but I'll be here 2 more days because I'm every other day now. Best to everybody.